Frankie Dart is not what she seems. Here on Pillar of Garbage, we talk about a lot of things. New films, not new films, new shows, old shows, quite a lot of superhero stuff, ancient literature, critical theory, and sometimes even Tiny Tower. But we don't often talk about Community, which is kind of odd, given that this show is where the channel's name originated. And I think it's time to chang that, because I love this show. And even if it turns out that the fickle whims of the YouTube algorithm prevent this video from reaching them, I know there's a lot of people on this website who love Community too. This video is going to be pretty out there though, because it's all about how I genuinely believe Frankie Dart, as played by Paget Brewster in the show's last season, is a demon. Or at the very least, some sort of supernatural entity. Maybe a genie, I'm not ruling out genies here. Before I present my evidence, I'd like to just point out that within the world of Community, this idea isn't necessarily as wild as it seems. And that's because there's a couple of earlier episodes of the show which suggest the existence of the supernatural in and around Greendale. The Chang C-plot in Season 5 Episode 7, Bondage and Beta Male Sexuality, sees the eccentric maths teacher stumble into a theatre and accidentally begin a one-man show. Weird plot, but this is Chang we're talking about. After he finishes his performance though, the janitor outside informs him that the theatre was empty and that Chang must have been performing to ghosts. Chang rushes back inside and confronts the audience, but they tell him the janitor is the ghost.
Those guys in there told me that you're the one that died in the fire and you're a ghost!
And you just believed them? You just believed a bunch of ghosts?
And when Chang meets up with the rest of the committee at school the following day, they say they never saw him at the theatre at all. So it's a strange turn of events, but at this stage it's all kind of circumstantial. You could explain it all away. For instance, Chang is kind of nuts.
Chang, you cannot be on the committee if you're going to be actively insane.
So you could very well argue that in his C-plot, the diegesis of the episode is being filtered through his perception of the world, and that all this ghost talk is just some nonsense his criminally insane subconscious cooked up. But at the very least, it introduces the idea of the supernatural. It floats it, brings it to the audience's attention as a conceptual possibility. And then, a few episodes later, the show doubles down on this, introducing as a one-off gag the fact that one of the school board guys has actual psychic powers.
You're special, Richie. Your mind is special. You know it works differently from other kids' minds.
I know where they went. They climbed out a window to the roof, hopped on a hang glider, and flew it across town to that Greek restaurant. Papa Christos?
I'm gonna tell you something that I'd like to stay between us.
Oh.
I was thinking about a hang glider.
That's one of my single favourite bits in the entire series, but it also fits into this picture we've been building of Greendale as a place where weird, magical things can and do crop up, but in the peripheries of the show's focus. They're never lingered on, instead they're glossed right over. A few episodes later, at the end of the Season 6 premiere, we get another little glimpse of the supernatural. Have a look. That's in one of Season 6's weird ending scenes, which often exist outside of the main narrative of the show, but characters and events from these scenes are referenced in the main episodes to which they are affixed, so they do seem to be canonical. Given this moving noose, given the existence of genuine psychic powers, and given the weird Chang ghost conundrum a little earlier, Community appears to take place in a somewhat paranormal world. And as far as I'm concerned, all of the stuff I've said so far isn't a theory, it's just fact. No, this next section is where things get a little more dicey. Because with all of this in mind, the metaphysical status of Frankie Dart is called into question. Wow, that's a sentence I never expected to say. But there's a number of highly suspect moments throughout the 6th season. First, in episode 1, when Frankie gets flustered in the speakeasy, listen to the impromptu insult she lets out directed at everyone's favourite human raisin, Leonard.
Shut up, Leonard. You are old, and you deserve less because of your age. Everybody here is a fart, a living fart from the butt of a lesser god.
Have you ever insulted someone in such a manner, comparing them to the effluence of a lesser god? On its own, this moment isn't anything, of course, it's just a really weird turn of phrase. But it seems Frankie's library of aphorisms leans hard on obscure mythological metaphors. Check out this moment from the next episode.
One of the most unfair lessons we're forced to learn is that our parents are human beings. We want to think of them as gods or demons, because then that would make us heroes.
Again, on its own, this moment is nothing. Even considered together with the previous one, all it tells us is that Frankie has a unique way of speaking. But let's keep going, because I want to play you the clip which first sparked this theory of mine, back many moons ago.
I am trying to find the IT lady. My emails to her get bounced back to me in Aramaic, and when I call, I hear an undulating, high-pitched whistle that makes my nose bleed.
I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this scene, because there's a few more layers to it than the others. The obvious joke being made here is that, canonically speaking, the Greendale IT lady was previously a separate character, also played by Paget Brewster, back in the Season 5 episode Analysis of Cork-Based Networking. And I don't know about you guys, but an undulating high-pitched whistle is more or less the noise I'd expect to hear if reality glitched out and led to me speaking to another version of myself. But Frankie also mentions that her emails are getting bounced back to her in Aramaic. And that's the detail I want to focus on here. In case you're unaware, Aramaic is a Middle Eastern language which has been around in one form or another for around 3,000 years. It still exists, kinda, as Neo-Aramaic languages are still spoken in areas such as Syria or Iran, but the language was at its peak in antiquity. At times, it was the lingua franca across the ancient Middle East, but it's probably most commonly known in the modern Anglosphere as an ancient biblical language. Aramaic phrases occur throughout the scriptures, and the books Daniel and Ezra are written entirely in the language. And outside of Judeo-Christian religious texts, Aramaic inscriptions on tombs and statues serve as the primary sources of knowledge for those studying the cultures and religious practices of the ancient Levant, with these inscriptions often dedicated to half-remembered Canaanite gods like Melquart or Chemosh, many of whom would reappear later in Jewish or early Christian texts and who would often be interpreted by later readers as evil spirits or demons. So episode 4 doesn't ever directly point to Frankie as a demon, but the amount of times she relates the world around her to weirdly obscure religious or mythological frameworks, or is otherwise implicated in odd happenings evocative of ancient spirits or deities, surely surpasses coincidence. And while, as I mentioned above, it's true that this episode never explicitly points to Frankie as a demon, Abed does level this exact charge at another character. Take a look.
What are you, a demon? Did Clive Barker write you?
I actually didn't have this moment in mind when I first considered making a video like this, but on my last rewatch it stuck out to me like a sore thumb, and prompted me to actually start planning this video out. Sure, this moment is played for laughs, and the accusation doesn't really fit Elroy, the new IT lady of Greendale. But this is an odd joke to make. Might Abed too have sensed this ramp up in supernatural phenomena at Greendale? This demon line comes mere minutes after that weird Frankie IT lady email Aramaic scene. To me, that timing, that framing, makes it seem like Abed is onto something. But he's got the wrong guy, because this accusation fits Frankie like a glove. Think about it, it fits with the pattern of Frankie's speech and behaviour we've seen thus far. Don't forget, Abed has a history for spotting weird Greendale conspiracies which everyone else writes off. And on top of this, it is so community to figure out an in-universe explanation for a simple double casting and hide all the clues to this explanation deep in the background. So that's the theory. Frankie is the outsider who came in and nailed it. But did we ever stop to wonder how she nailed it so easily? How she did so well in filling the show's growing hole of departing characters? Demonic genie powers, ancient magics and Aramaic spells. Far-fetched? Maybe. Possible? Absolutely. Of course, if this is the case, the obvious question is, why is an ancient magical creature infiltrating Greendale Community College? And hey, maybe that's another video. Well, no, it isn't. I'm not actually going to make that video, because that's a level of baseless conjecture that even I wouldn't stoop to. I'd guess, though, that it would have something to do with Abed. After all, he does seem at times to be the metaphysical linchpin of this world's very reality.
How do you shake a story? The answer is in the teacher's lounge.
If you're a magical demon creature, those sorts of abilities would surely be valuable to you. But yeah, that's that for the wild speculation. And I just want to reiterate that I do genuinely believe that on some level this was intentional. Even if Dan Harmon and co didn't want to establish this as a hard fact, these moments are not accidental. One final piece of evidence. Rick and Morty Season 2 was being worked on at roughly the same point in time as this show's last season. And what do we see as a plot point there? A vampire infiltrating the thoroughly normal environment of Morty's school. So clearly, a very similar scenario to the one I'm proposing was playing out in Harmon's head in the same time frame. But I do have a wealth of ideas for further community videos, which I'd love to make over the next few months, if this video gets any sort of response whatsoever. Both ideas for deep dives on specific episodes and topics and longer retrospectives, so let me know what you'd like to see. For now though, I'll end by thanking all my patrons on screen now, especially Kevin Douglas and Ian Fifield.